5 months after my wife passed away from cancer, I decided it was time to sell her car. But when I opened the glove compartment, I found something that completely shattered my beliefs about our marriage. What I discovered would forever change my family. My name is Darren Stone. I'm 42 years old, and 5 months ago, I laid to rest my wife of 15 years. Cancer had taken Marlene away from me and our 2 children, Justin and Kayla. But that was only the beginning of uncovering who she truly was when I wasn't paying attention. That day began like any other Tuesday morning. I was preparing for work at Henderson Ford, where I had managed sales for 8 years. Good job, steady paycheck, respected in the community. Marlene used to tease that I could sell ice to an Eskimo. Justin was grabbing cereal before leaving for his senior year at Roosevelt High, while 14-year-old Kayla was still upstairs getting ready. At least some things remained normal after losing Marlene. "Dad, I need money for the homecoming dance," Justin said, scrolling through his phone. $50 for the ticket, plus dinner money. I poured my coffee and studied my son. He looked more and more like Marlene each day. Same dark eyes, same stubborn chin. "We'll talk tonight." Put the phone down while eating. He rolled his eyes but obeyed. Good kid, despite the attitude. Both kids were coping with their mother's death better than I expected, though I knew they were hurting. At work, Lance Freeman waited in the parking lot. He owned Freeman Auto Services, a chain of repair shops with dealership contracts. We've worked together for years, and he became a friend. When Marlene got sick, Lance offered help without me asking. "Morning, Darren," he said with that easy smile. "How are you holding up?" "One day at a time," I replied, my standard answer for months. "What brings you by so early?" Lance shifted uncomfortably. "Actually, I need to talk about something. Got a minute?" We walked into the showroom past shiny F-150s and Mustangs. I unlocked my office and gestured for him to sit. "What's on your mind?" Lance cleared his throat. "This is awkward, but I thought you should know. There's talk around town, people saying things about Marlene." My coffee paused halfway to my lips. "What kind of talk?" "Nothing specific. Just rumors. You know how people are." Lance looked genuinely concerned. "I figured you'd want to know so you could handle it." "Rumors about what exactly?" "People claim she was seen in places she shouldn't be, with people she shouldn't have been with." Lance met my eyes. "Look, I didn't believe it. Marlene was solid, but you deserved a heads up." The words hit me like a punch to the stomach, but I kept my expression calm. Who's spreading this nonsense? Nobody wants to say where they heard it. Could be total nonsense. Lance stood. "Sorry to dump this on you, man. But if it were me, I'd want to know." After he left, I stared at a framed photo of Marlene and the kids from last Christmas. She looked happy, healthy before cancer changed everything. Hearing people talk, spreading lies about a woman who couldn't defend herself, made my blood boil. Yet deep down, a small voice whispered that maybe I should pay attention. That night at dinner, I couldn't shake Lance's words. The kids were sharing their day, Justin complaining about his history teacher, Kayla excited about tryouts for the school play. Normal teenage chatter that usually made me smile, but all I could think about were those rumors. "Dad, you're not listening," Kayla said, waving her fork. "I got the lead role in the fall production," she added. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I replied, trying to focus. "What play is it again?" "Romeo and Juliet." "I'm playing Juliet." She beamed with pride. Mom would have been thrilled. She always said I had a flair for drama. The mention of Marlene hit harder than usual. She would have been proud. I managed. After dinner, while the kids worked on homework, I found myself standing in the garage, staring at Marlene's Honda Accord. It had sat untouched for 5 months, gathering dust like some kind of shrine. Her coffee cup remained in the center console, her favorite CD halfway out of the player. I had avoided this car, avoiding the memories, but Lance's words echoed in my mind. Where had people supposedly seen Marlene? Who was she supposedly with? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Marlene. Meet me at Denny's on Route 9 tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come alone." I stared at the screen, heart racing. Someone knew something about my wife, something they couldn't say over the phone or publicly. Part of me wanted to delete the message, pretend it didn't exist. Another part needed answers. I showed the text to Lance the next day when he stopped by the dealership. "Could be a prank," he said, but his face was serious. "Or it could be someone with real information." "What would you do?" I asked. Lance was silent for a long moment. "I'd go, but be careful. Bring someone with you. Or at least tell someone where you're going." That evening, I drove to Denny's, stomach in knots. The restaurant was nearly empty, just a few truckers and a waitress who seemed like she wanted to be anywhere else. I chose a booth at the back and ordered coffee I didn't want. At exactly 7, a woman walked in. Mid-30s, blonde hair, nervous energy. She scanned the diner until her eyes locked on mine, then crossed the room like she was walking into a firing squad. "You're Darren Stone," she said as she slid into the booth opposite me. "That's me. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I work at the clinic where your wife had her treatments." She wrapped both hands around the coffee the waitress had set down. I knew Marlene fairly well those last months. "Okay," I said carefully. "What is it you want to tell me?" Sarah took a trembling breath. "Your wife wasn't only getting chemo at the clinic. She was seeing someone there. A man who wasn't you." The words hit me like a bucket of ice. "What do you mean? I shouldn't be telling you this. I could lose my job." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "But I can't sleep knowing and not saying anything." "What exactly do you know?" I asked. "I know that while you were at work, thinking she was in treatment, she spent hours in the parking lot with another man. He brought her flowers, held her hand, kissed her goodbye." I felt the color drain from my face. "Who is he?" Sarah reached into her purse and unfolded a scrap of paper. I wrote down his plate number. Figured someone might need it someday. I stared at the numbers and letters on the paper, 7 digits and 3 letters that could upend everything I believed about Marlene. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice rougher than I meant. Sarah gripped her coffee tighter. "I first noticed it about 6 months before she died. Maybe longer. I didn't keep exact track at first." "Describe him." "Tall, maybe 6'2". Brown hair with gray at the temples. Wore expensive clothes. Drives a black BMW. She paused, watching my face. He seemed to care about her, if that matters. The way he looked at her, the way he held her hand. It wasn't just physical. That made it worse. I could have handled a meaningless fling, something born of fear or desperation facing death. But this sounded like love. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded. "Tell what? That your grieving husband's dead wife was cheating on him?" Sarah shook her head. "But then I started hearing the rumors around town and realized others had seen it too. I thought you deserved the truth from someone who actually saw it." I folded the paper and tucked it into my wallet. "Thanks for telling me. What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to find out who he is." The next morning, I called my old friend Mike at the DMV. We'd gone to high school together, and I once did him a favor on a truck. "Run this plate for me," I said. "Personal matter, Darren. You know I can't just." "Mike, my wife died 5 months ago. I found out she was seeing someone. I need to know who." After a long pause, he gave me the number. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. "The BMW is registered to Lance Freeman," he said. "Lives at 1247 Oak Street." The phone slipped from my hand. Lance Freeman, my partner, my friend, the man who'd warned me about gossip, who'd offered help when Marlene got sick, who'd stood at her graveside, was the owner of the car. I sat in my truck outside Lance's house for an hour, watching him through the kitchen window, making coffee, reading the paper, acting like he hadn't shattered my life. The rage inside me felt dangerous, ready to explode. When he came out to get his paper, I climbed from the truck. "Morning, Lance," I said as I walked up his driveway. He looked up and guilt flashed across his face like a neon sign. "Darren, what are you doing here?" "I think you know," I replied. Lance straightened, still holding the paper. "We should talk inside. We should talk right here." I stopped 3 feet away. "How long, Lance? How long were you sleeping with my wife?" Lance dropped the paper. His face went white, but he didn't deny it. 8 months, he said softly. "It started 8 months before she died." The truth struck harder than a lie would have. While I'd cut back work to care for her, he'd been with her. "Darren, you have to understand," he began. "Understand what?" I snapped, not caring if the neighbors heard. "That my business partner was screwing my dying wife." Lance took a step back. "It wasn't like that. She was scared, lonely. You were trying to be strong for everyone, and she felt she couldn't tell you how she really felt. At first it was just talking. I'd see her at the clinic on my lunch breaks, and she looked so lost. One thing led to another. I wanted to hit him. Every muscle was coiled. But I wasn't someone who solved things with fists, not now. "You came to my house," I said instead. "You ate at my table. You played catch with my son in my yard. I stepped closer. You destroyed my family. You made me question everything. My marriage, my life, my wife's last months. And you know how it looks." Lance had the decency to look ashamed. "She loved you, Darren." She never stopped loving you. She had a strange way of showing it. The cancer changed her, made her desperate for something that felt alive. Something that wasn't hospitals, treatments, and dying. Lance's voice was barely more than a whisper. I should have been stronger. I should have walked away. But you didn't. No, I didn't. I stood there looking at the man I'd trusted, the man who'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. Part of me wanted to wreck him the way he'd wrecked me. Another part was simply tired. I want you to stay away from my family, I said at last. No more business, no more friendly visits. If you see me coming, cross the street. Darren, wait, Lance began. I turned back to face him. If I find out you've told anyone about this conversation, if my kids learn about their mother's affair from someone else, I'll make your life very difficult. He nodded. I walked back to my truck, hands shaking with fury. I kept controlled. I'd handled it like a man. No violence, no shouting match for the neighbors, just cold, hard truth delivered with a quiet anger Lance would remember. Now I had to work out how to tell Justin and Kayla their mother wasn't the saint they believed. The hardest talk of my life came on a Thursday night after dinner. I'd rehearsed what to say for 3 days, but when they sat at the kitchen table looking at me, every prepared line vanished. Kids, we need to talk about your mother. I started, my voice steadier than I felt. Is this about the rumors? Justin asked. At 17, he'd already sensed the tension piling up in the house. Some kids at school are saying things. My chest dropped. What kind of things? That mom was seeing someone else before she died. Justin's tone was defensive. I told them they're idiots. Mom would never do that. Kayla looked bewildered. What are you talking about? I drew a breath. These are my kids, and they deserve the truth, even if it hurts. Your mother had a relationship with someone while she was sick, I said as gently as I could. I found out a few days ago. Silence stretched between us. Kayla's face moved from confusion to disbelief to rage. That's not true, she said flatly. Mom loved you. She loved us. She did love us, I replied. But sometimes people make mistakes when they're scared and sick. Who was it? Justin asked, voice cold and older than his years. I hesitated. Lance? Uncle Lance. The man who'd taught Justin to change a tire and taken Kayla to father-daughter dances when I worked late. It was Lance Freeman. Kayla leapt to her feet. No, you're lying. Uncle Lance would never. Kayla, sit down. She refused to listen, sobbing, tears of anger streaming down her face. Mom's dead, and you're trying to ruin her memory. She slammed her bedroom door so hard the house echoed. Justin stayed at the table, staring at his hands. How long did you know? He asked softly. I just found out this week. How long was it going on? About 8 months. Justin nodded slowly, absorbing it like the young man he was becoming. So that's why you've been so angry lately. I thought you were just missing her more. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I'm sorry about everything. Does Lance know you know? Justin asked. We talked about it. I watched him, and something hard flickered in his eyes that hadn't been there before. What did you say to him? I told him to stay away from our family. Good. Justin rose from the table. I'm going to check on Kayla. After they went upstairs, I sat alone in the kitchen, listening to my daughter's muffled sobs through the ceiling. I thought the discovery was the worst part of Marlene's betrayal, but telling my children the truth hurt far more. My phone buzzed, another text from an unknown number. Your kids deserve better than lies. There's more you need to know about Marlene and Lance. Meet me at the park on Elm Street tomorrow at noon. I stared at the screen. More secrets, more pain waiting to be revealed. But my children deserve the whole truth, no matter how much it would hurt. The Elm Street park was almost empty when I arrived. An older woman pushing a stroller, a jogger training for a race. I sat on a bench near the playground and waited. At exactly noon, a woman approached. Mid-40s, dressed professionally, carrying a leather briefcase. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. Mr. Stone, I'm Rebecca Foster. I was Marlene's oncologist. That's where I remembered seeing her, at the cancer center during Marlene's treatments. Dr. Foster had always been kind yet straightforward, never sugarcoating the prognosis, but never completely crushing our hope. Dr. Foster, what do you want to tell me? She sat down beside me on the bench. This is highly unusual. Patient confidentiality normally continues after death, but there are exceptions. What kind of exceptions? Your wife kept a journal during treatment. She asked me to hold it. She didn't want it found at home. Dr. Foster opened her briefcase and took out a small leather notebook. She made me promise to give it to you if anything happened to her. I took the journal with shaking hands. It was worn, filled with Marlene's careful handwriting. She wanted you to understand. Dr. Foster continued. The affair, the secrecy, it wasn't simple betrayal. There are complications you need to know about. I opened to a random page. The treatments aren't working. Dr. Foster thinks I have maybe 6 months. I can't tell Darren. He's trying so hard to stay positive. But Lance knows. He sees me for who I really am now, not the woman Darren needs me to be. She was protecting you, Dr. Foster said softly, from the truth about her prognosis, from seeing her unravel. Lance became her outlet for fears and despair she couldn't share with you. I flipped to another entry. Darren brought me flowers today. Yellow roses, my favorite. He looks so hopeful, talking about plans for after I beat this. I don't have the heart to tell. And the cancer has spread to my liver. Some truths are too cruel. You're saying she lied to me about how sick she was. She lied to everyone except Lance. He was the only person who knew she had weeks, not months. Dr. Foster's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not excusing the affair, Mr. Stone. But your wife was drowning, and Lance was the only one she felt she could be honest with about dying. I closed the journal, unable to read further. Why are you telling me this now? Because your children will grow up thinking their mother was unfaithful. They should know she was human, scared, and trying to shield the people she loved from seeing her break down. I looked at the woman who had watched my wife die, who had kept her secrets even after death. There's one more thing, Dr. Foster said. Marlene asked me to tell you something. If you ever found out about Lance, she wanted you to know that loving you was the best decision she ever made, and leaving you the worst. The affair wasn't about not loving you enough. It was about loving you too much to let you see her completely break. I sat in that park for an hour after Dr. Foster left, reading Marlene's journal. Page after page of fear, pain, and desperate love for the family she knew she was leaving behind. The woman in these pages wasn't the faithless wife I imagined. She was a dying woman making terrible choices to protect the one she loved. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but for the first time since discovering Lance, I understood why. 2 weeks after reading the journal, I finally faced what I'd been avoiding, cleaning out her car. I decided to sell it 5 months after her death. But when I opened the glove box to remove personal items, I found something that changed everything again. Beneath the owner's manual and registration papers was a small digital recorder, the kind lawyers use for dictating notes. I'd never seen it before, but it was clearly Marlene's. Her initials were engraved on the side. I sat in the driver's seat and pressed play. Marlene's voice filled the car, weak but determined. If Darren is listening to this, Dr. Foster kept her promise and gave him my journal. There's more he needs to know. My hands shook holding the device. I made Lance promise to take care of you and the kids after I'm gone. Not financially, God knows he owes us that, but to be there if you need someone who understands what we went through. I paused. Lance taking care of us, the man I'd banished from our lives. The cancer spread faster than I told anyone. By the time you hear this, I've probably been gone for months. Lance knows my real timeline. Days, not weeks. The recording continued with details that made my chest tighten. Marlene describing her final conversations with Lance, her fears about leaving Justin and Kayla, her regret about the deception. I need you to know something else about Lance. He never wanted the affair to continue. After the first month, he tried to end it 3 times. Said it wasn't fair to you. Wasn't fair to anyone. But I was selfish. I threatened to tell his wife about us if he walked away. My blood ran cold. Marlene had blackmailed Lance into continuing the relationship. I know how that sounds. I know what it makes me. But I was dying, Darren. And he was the only person I could be completely honest with about being terrified. The recording went on for another 10 minutes. Marlene explained in detail how she had manipulated Lance, using his guilt and compassion to keep him involved even when he wanted out. When the recording ended, I sat in silence for a long time. The woman I'd been resenting for betraying me had also betrayed her lover. She had hurt everyone who cared for her, including the man she supposedly chose over me. I found myself driving to Lance's house again, but this time with a different purpose. He was in his garage working on his motorcycle when I pulled in. Darren, he said, straightening up. I thought we agreed. I found Marlene's recorder. I interrupted. Lance's face went pale. He set down his wrench and wiped his hands on a rag. We stood there in his garage, 2 men who had both been manipulated by the same dying woman. She blackmailed you, I said. Lance nodded. Threatened to tell my wife, destroy my business relationships. Said she'd make sure everyone knew I'd abandon a cancer patient when she needed me most. Why didn't you tell me that when I confronted you? Because I still chose to start it. I still betrayed your trust. Lance sat down heavily on the workbench. I deserve whatever you want to do to me. I studied this man, friend, enemy, now something else entirely. She played us both, I said. Yeah, Lance replied quietly. She did. The kids ask about you sometimes. Wonder why Uncle Lance doesn't come around anymore. He looked at me. What do you want me to say to that? I want you to help me figure out how to tell them the truth without completely destroying their memory of their mother. We spent 3 hours in his garage that day, going over everything that had happened between him and Marlene. It was hard hearing the details, understanding how she manipulated him into staying involved, but something strange happened. For the first time since discovering the affair, I didn't feel the full weight of betrayal alone. She had also recorded messages for the kids. Lance explained he was meant to give them to Justin and Kayla when they turned 18, so they would understand better as adults. Messages, explanations, apologies, things she couldn't say while alive because she was trying to protect them. I thought about my children, still struggling with the revelation about their mother's affair. Justin had been distant but protective, stepping up to help with Kayla. Kayla had swung between anger one day and heartbreak the next. Maybe we should listen to them together, I suggested, to figure out the right way to handle it. Lance looked surprised. You want me involved with your family again? I want my kids to have all the information they need to understand their mother. And like it or not, you were part of her story. That evening, Lance came to the house for the first time since Marlene's funeral. Justin opened the door, face hardening when he saw him. Dad, what's he doing here? We need to talk. All of us. Family meeting in the living room. Kayla came downstairs reluctantly. She'd barely spoken to me since learning about the affair, and seeing Lance confused her. I know this is awkward, I began. But I found some things that change what we know about your mother's relationship with Lance. I played parts of Marlene's recording, the sections where she admitted to blackmailing Lance, explaining her fears and motivations. I watched their expressions change as they heard their mother describing her manipulation. She wasn't just physically ill. She was sick with fear, with desperation, I explained after the recording ended. It made her do things unlike the woman we knew. Justin looked at Lance with something like understanding. You tried to end it, he said. Lance nodded 3 times. Your mother was very persuasive, Kayla said quietly. She threatened you. She did. But I still chose to start the relationship. That's on me, not her. We talked for another hour, Lance answering questions, me filling gaps from Marlene's journal and recordings. It wasn't forgiveness. We weren't ready, but it was understanding. When Lance got up to leave, Justin surprised everyone. Uncle Lance, he said, maybe you could come to dinner this weekend. Not like old times, but different. Lance looked at me. I'd like that, Justin. Thank you. After he left, Kayla curled up next to me on the couch. I'm still mad at Mom, she said. That's okay. I am too sometimes, but I'm not mad at Uncle Lance anymore. Good. We're going to figure this out together. All of us. I looked at my daughter, brave and trying to make sense of an impossible situation. All of us, I confirmed. 6 months after finding Marlene's journal, Lance brought over the recordings she'd made for the kids. We agreed to listen together first to ensure they were appropriate for Justin and Kayla. She had made these about a week before she died. Lance explained, as we sat in my living room, that Marlene had asked him to wait until the kids turned 18 before hearing the recordings. But after everything that had happened, they deserved to hear their mother's voice. I said they needed her explanation. The first recording was for Justin. Marlene's voice was weak but clear. My dear Justin, if you're hearing this, you now know about Lance and me. I cannot undo what I did, but I can explain why. You're going to be the man of the house now, and you need to understand that even good people make terrible choices when they are afraid. She spoke of her worries for his future, her pride in the young man he was becoming, and her sorrow that she wouldn't see him graduate, marry, or have children of his own. Don't let my mistakes make you cynical about love. Your father is the best man I've ever known. I failed him, but love itself did not fail us. Kayla's recording was different, softer, more maternal. Sweet Kayla, you may be angry with me for a long time. That's okay. I am angry with myself, too. But I need you to know that every choice I made, even the wrong ones, came from love. For you, for Justin, for your father. Marlene spoke about her hopes for Kayla's future, about being strong and independent, and about not letting her mother's errors define her own relationships. Trust your father, she concluded. He will make mistakes. We all do. But he will never stop loving you. And if you can, trust Lance too. He's a good man caught up in a dying woman's desperation. When the recordings ended, Lance and I sat in silence for several minutes. She really loved you all, he said finally. I know, I replied. That was what made understanding so difficult. That evening, I played the recordings for Justin and Kayla. They listened silently, tears streaming down their faces. She sounds so sad, Kayla whispered. She was sad, scared, and sick, sweetheart. Justin wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I forgive her, he said simply. I don't understand what she did, but I forgive her. Kayla nodded. Me too. And what about Lance? They exchanged a quiet look. He can come to Christmas dinner, Kayla said. But he's bringing dessert, and it better be good. I laughed for the first time in months, deeply. I'll let him know about the dessert, I said. Dad, are we going to be okay? Justin asked. I looked at my children, remarkable young people showing more grace and wisdom than many adults twice their age. Yes, son, we're going to be just fine. 2 years later, I stood in the Henderson Ford showroom, watching Justin receive his Salesman of the Month award. At 19, he had taken to the car business as if he were born for it, and customers trusted him just as they had trusted me. Kayla was performing in the spring musical at the community college, majoring in theater, loving every moment. Her scholarship covered most tuition, and what remained, we managed together. Lance had become part of our lives again, but differently. Not the easy friendship we once had, but something more honest. He had started dating a widow named Patricia, who knew our story and didn't judge any of us. She's good for him, I told Patricia one evening. Do you really think so? I think Marlene would want all of us to find happiness again. I had started dating too, a woman named Carol, who worked at the bank and had never known Marlene. It was nice to have someone who saw me for who I am now, not as half of the couple I used to be. The dealership was thriving. I had been promoted to general manager after the previous manager retired. But the real victory was personal. Justin and Kayla calling Lance Uncle Lance again without hesitation, family dinners filled with laughter, waking up looking forward to the day instead of just surviving. One evening, as I locked up the dealership, I thought of Marlene, not with anger, but with a sense closer to peace. She had hurt us, me, Lance, the kids, but she had also loved us in her complicated, flawed, human way. I pulled out my phone and called home. Hey, Dad, Kayla answered. How was work? Good, sweetheart. Really good. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Uncle is here. We're making tacos. Save me some. Yeah, I love you. Love you too, Dad. Driving home through the familiar streets, I realized something important. Marlene's betrayal hadn't destroyed our family. It had changed us, tested us, forced us to rebuild from the ground up. But we were still here, still loving each other, still moving forward. And that was enough.